science news. Science news! Let's do some science news. My live stream on the 4th kind of face planted, but in Philadelphia, this actually made the national news, there was a special thing they did down at the Independence Hall. They buried a special 250 time capsule. There it is there in its canister, hermetically sealed canister. I've talked about time capsules in the past because it always comes into the news that some place somewhere they've found a time capsule or have opened up a time capsule from the 1950s or the 1960s or even like from 10 years ago. And when they open the time capsule, it's just, inside it's just mush because water got into it or everything in it just disintegrated and turned into sludge. It's always a story like that. It's like time capsules are a boondoggle. Any preservationist, anyone who works with materials knows that you cannot just take a bunch of dissimilar materials, put them into a sealed vessel, and let time pass and expect everything to be fine. Because what happens is, well, these materials will destroy each other. If you put paper in with metal, the paper will destroy the metal, and the metal will destroy the paper, and acids in the paper will start to destroy plastics, and the venting of chemicals from the plastics will destroy all the other materials. And so you take a time capsule, it's basically just a sealed vessel with a whole bunch of different things in it. You bury it for 100 years or whatever. Well, unless it's like just a stack of books or just a stack of, or pieces of glass, or unless it's like all made out of stainless steel, like everything in it, you're just going to have a bunch of goop. But so they loaded it up. This is them loading up the time capsule with all kinds of stuff. This is a time capsule that optimistically is due to be opened in 2276. That's being pretty optimistic. So yeah, last Saturday at Independence National Historical Park, federal government buried the time capsule containing objects and records from all 50 states and from 6 territories, U.S. territories. It's a 900-pound cylinder covered with an 1,100-pound bell jar. The National Institute of Standards and Technology oversaw the creation of the capsule, employing material science, geometry, physics, and other disciplines to ensure the objects inside look as good as new when they're dug up. Well, we'll just see about that. We'll just see. Here, it shows here, these like one of the vessels there. It's like a stainless steel canister. They're gonna, I mean, yeah, just because you seal it doesn't mean, But what did they put in? So yes, all the states submitted stuff and all the territories. Maine submitted a message etched on an actual whale bone. I thought, is that legal? Because whale bone in the U.S., it's like there are certain indigenous peoples that have rights to like whale in the U.S., but it's very limited. But in Maine, I don't know. There must be an indigenous tribe in Maine that's allowed to whale or something. But again, you're putting a bone in there. That's going to affect other things. It's our organic material. It's going to affect the inorganic. The Northern Mariana Islands submitted shells and necklaces. Again, more biological material. Arizona is the copper state, so they submitted a copper ingot, piece of metal. Ohio is the home of the Wright brothers, so they submitted a piece of fabric from the original Wright Flyer. But pieces of the Wright Flyer have ended up in the news a lot. That went to the moon and was on Artemis, and they got lots of little pieces of that Wright Flyer. Commemorative coins were put in by many states, letters from governors. The do not add that list included anything that would decompose or interact with the items around it in a negative fashion. Now, I've discovered in collecting a lot of old things, you might have seen on my channel over all these years that I have many old things, including old guitars, old tools, and old glasses. All kinds of materials decompose, and everything decomposes. This is the thing. Plastics, synthetic materials, organic materials, it all decomposes. Nothing is stable. And so this is the big thing about time capsules. I have lots of stories about people who've tried to preserve an item either by framing it or putting it into an acrylic box or whatever, to disastrous results because the item self-destructed from being enclosed. In the old days, it was signed photographs. I learned this back in the 80s. I was a framer. It was one of my first real adult jobs. I became a conservation framer and specialized in framing artwork and such. But I learned a lot about the volatility of materials and keep things from being in contact, keep art from being in contact with glass, putting air spaces in, having air circulation inside a frame, stuff like that. But one of the things that big mistake people would make, and I made it too, because even at the time I didn't know about it, no one really knew about it, was that there was, Sharpie markers were being used by people to sign photographs. And resin-coated photographic paper was notorious for bleeding out inks and special kinds of, permanent markers and such, and other kinds of inks would react with the resin coating of the photograph in combination with the photographic chemicals, because photographs are very rarely archivally stabilized. If you have a celebrity signed photograph, for example, that photograph is going to be mass produced, and it's not going to be fixed all that well, and it's certainly not going to be stopped all that well, and it's certainly not going to be rinsed or stabilized all that well. So photographs, just by the nature of being made industrially, especially if you're getting a celebrity 8x10 that was made in the 80s or the 90s or something on resin-coated paper, those photographs were printed very quickly, stopped, fixed, rinsed very quickly, dried, and then you have thousands of them, and celebrities would sign them and mail them out and everything, and so they're collectibles, and people get these collectibles and they frame them, they put them, frame them up and put them behind glass, and then 5 years, 10 years down the road, that signature will just start to self-destruct. It'll start to bleed into the print, or the fact that you took that print, if it's a black and white photograph, and you put it behind glass, sometimes the silver will start to come out of the print into the emulsion, into the coating of the paper, and it'll start to develop a mirror surface. And it's triggered by a chemical reaction with the ink that's used to sign the photograph. Whereas if you just had the photograph and put it in the frame, it probably wouldn't decompose. But the fact that you put the photograph in the frame with the Sharpie signature, the chemical reaction starts and the silver starts to leach out of the photograph. And this is an unstoppable process once it starts. And then what happens is that the silver will come completely out of the print, and it'll start to bleach. You'll start to see the dark areas, it'll start to go negative, so that the it almost becomes like a daguerreotype, where a daguerreotype is a photograph that's actually a photographic negative that you view as a positive, because the metallic surface reflects the light, which is actually the negative. It's actually the dark part is reflective. So when the light hits the daguerreotype, you see the positive in the reflection. But yeah, this kind of decomposition, no one really knew about it until it was too late. Even when I was a framer, no one was talking about it, and I actually framed a few of my own signed photographs of celebrity photographs back in the 80s, and it took, by the late 90s, around the 2000s, they started to self-destruct. And that's how I discovered about this long-delayed onset destruction of archival materials. And people putting nitro guitars into acrylic boxes to be on display. And within 6 months, the guitar is destroyed because the nitric acid that it is slowly emitting which if it's out in the air, it's just it's at a level that you can't even detect. But you put it inside of an enclosure, and in 6 months, there's enough nitric acid in that enclosure to completely destroy all the hardware and cause an accelerated process that causes the nitrocellulose to basically decompose very rapidly. I just have so many stories. Even like my vintage. Well, this is the classic. The vintage. Yeah, the Zeolite. Yeah, yeah. The Zeolite handles are. Everyone knows about these. The Zeolite handles. They decompose. I've got. This is a set from probably like the early 70s, mid 70s. I've had these tools for at least 40 years at least, but I got them used. But they started to go funky in the 90s, and this one is actually fine. It's fine. But other ones, they turned all white and ended up smelling like cat pee. When they start to decompose, they're notorious for smelling like cat pee or cat vomit or something. It's a disgusting thing. But polyurethane, disintegrates in some really stinky ways. Anybody who has a lot of tools knows about how a lot of durable materials decompose. But inevitably, anything you put in a time capsule, forget it. It's going to rot. It's going to rot. Will the temperature remain consistent? It should. Yeah, it's going to be buried at quite a depth, and I'm sure the time capsule will survive the 250 years, but contents, I don't know. Will there be anybody to open it or even know it's there in 250 years? I can't say. They sealed the vessel with what's called an indium wire. That's a soft metal that will weld to itself, and when compressed, it will fill in the cracks and microscopic voids to create a perfectly airtight system. The lid is fastened with 43 bolts, and then over the top of the time capsule is something called a bell jar. It will capture air inside of it, and the air will form a bubble. If water tries to get in the bell jar, the pressure will increase in the air bubble and will force the water back out. So, good luck, 250th time capsule. Good luck. Oh, okay. This is interesting. This is interesting here. Fiery visitor from space photobombs erupting volcano. There's the volcano. There's the meteor. Yeah. The island of Luzon in the Philippines. Yeah, Mayon, the country's most active volcano. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Mayon. Mayon or Mion? Mayon? I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce it. But it's the most active volcano on the island. And I guess they have this camera on it all the time. And whomp! Caught a meteor in a frame. It's a gorgeous video of an unusual coincidence. But it really shouldn't be. I mean, this stuff falling from the sky all the time. If you've got a webcam on pointed at the night sky, you're gonna see meteors and meteorites and fireballs. They happen all the time in various sizes, but photobomb away. Yep. Sad news. I don't want to do sad news. This is when I actually sent this to Dave Jones because he does the solar freak and everything. But they actually came up with a good idea. California tests a way to shake its thirst for both water and clean power by solar freaking canals. That's right. Canals. There's the solar panels over the canal. Actually, a good idea. It's actually twofold. It's 4,000 miles of canals, water canals in California. So lots of real estate. 15 gigawatts of electricity generated if the solar panels are covering all those canals, according to a simulation. Of course, that's, as Dave Jones always points out, there's conversion loss and everything. You got to distribute that power. You got to try and use it more locally. The longer you have to transmit that power, the more loss you have, all that stuff. There's losses in the system. But double plus, 63 billion gallons of water is estimated to be saved yearly in the lack of evaporation, because the canals are out in the sun, so you get more water delivered if you cover it up. If you cover it with solar panels, of course, I mean, covering anything electrical with water, you do, that I see maintenance issues with a system like this. Mildew, I mean, everything that you can imagine. You got a constant evaporation of water, condensation. Yeah, it would be a high maintenance system. Not that there wouldn't be return, but I don't know, they're going to try it out. Certainly a better idea than driving on this stuff, that's for sure. This was an idea, train rides to stargazing. Time to climb aboard to behold the heavens, the Milky Way. I thought about doing this. There's several of these in the U.S. Train rides that take you up into Canada or that go into northern Maine, others that go Alaska and such. The idea is you take a train ride to a destination, a remote northern destination, where it's very, very dry, very, very clear, and very dark, where there's no light pollution, so you can view the night sky the way humans used to view it before we had all this light. But yeah, they're doing this all over the place, all over the world. Yeah, from the Arctic Circle to New Zealand. One route even has a planetarium on rails. Oh wow, planetarium in a train car. Interesting. But yeah, I thought about doing this. I actually looked into it. There are several places on the East Coast that offer train rides up. There's Canadian trips, and there's ones that go into Maine, like the northern tip of Maine. But the ones that go to Canada were pretty interesting because they take you to some really remote places. I don't know if I could handle the cold, because you really have to do it in the wintertime when the air is really dry. But you got to be outside at night in the cold. My eyesight is so poor at this point, I wonder if I would even be able to see the Milky Way. It would just be like, my night vision is, yeah, I don't know if I'd have the sensitivity. This is interesting. Unopened mail. You would think, well, what's so big about unopened mail? Well, how about unopened mail that's 4,000 years old? This is what it looks like. 4,000-year-old unopened mail. These tablets, right, cuneiform tablets, these are actually sealed packages. And so the way that private messages were delivered in the old days was that they would take the cuneiform tablet and it would be wrapped in, like, it would be dried and then be wrapped in another layer of clay and then marked, I guess with who the message is meant for. And the receiver, I guess when it was delivered, the receiver would kind of smash the wasn't smashed out, but like knock the tablet, crack open the outer shell, and then read the private message inside. And apparently a lot of these like undelivered messages like still exist. And it says like in the past archaeologists have just smashed them to be able to read the messages, but now they're using modern instruments to peer through the layers so that they can actually read the messages without destroying the open tablets. And so, yeah, portable X-ray scanners. I guess like the kind they use in airports, but for high detail. I've seen YouTube videos with these things. They use them to like look into sealed products, like things that are like hermetically sealed, and they got to check them inside there. So there's like industrial uses for these X-ray scanners. They can look inside of machines and stuff, make sure that everything's where it should be. But yeah, they're able to read these tablets, and like this is an example of a tablet that's been scanned where you can see the inner message very, very clearly without having to smash it open. They're using very similar techniques to read scrolls without having to unfold them. In the past, they've had to practically destroy scrolls by unrolling them if they've been in, they get really fragile, papyrus. But now they just take the whole papyrus scroll and they'll scan it and then use a computer to unwrap it and unlayer it, and they can, read the density between the ink and the papyrus. They can actually read it. Yeah, but I thought that was interesting. This was kind of interesting. It was an article that says most walkers veer left and no one knows why. Apparently, when walking, people tend to veer counterclockwise. The Department of Applied Physics at the University of Navarra in Spain was studying whether people maintain a certain distance between one another when walking. I notice this a lot because I'm in the city. I'm always walking next to people and walking with people, and you kind of get into a flow. There's like a pedestrian flow, and sometimes people are walking too slow and everything. And so I'm always, looking at people who are like veering into me, and I've noticed how strange it is that people can, not get in the herd, and kind of want to fishtail around. Well, it turns out that across some 40 experiments, most of the participants in these studies spontaneously veered to the left. They tend to go to the left. I have my own hypothesis about this, but the observation nothing to do with the original research, but they just noticed this really weird phenomenon. And it says there, in principle, there's no reason for the fact that people prefer rotating counterclockwise. One of the papers found that when people encounter a wall, those who are right-handed tend to turn left, and those who are left-handed tend to do the opposite. Most of the participants in the original study were right-handed, so that would be what I was saying. That has to do with the left-right dominance. And also, if you're right-handed, you're also right-footed, and the right side of your body tends to be the stronger side, and so you would tend to push off with the strong side, because when you walk, your gait is usually not symmetrical. Mine is definitely not. But I have a very unusual body. So I've got a longer right leg. My right leg is like almost an inch and a half longer than my left leg. So I kind of pogo when I walk. But most people, if they're right-handed, they're going to be right-footed, and so the right leg is going to be stronger than the left leg, and they're going to tend to push off with their right and land with their left. And that's going to cause you to gradually kind of arc, unless you're constantly correcting your walking. If you weren't paying attention, you would just kind of arc to the left. That's the way I look at it. But yeah, it's interesting. They found that there are some cultural differences in the way people walk. It has more in here about crowds and stuff, like the difference between the way people move in a country like Japan and the United States. I think that has a lot of things to do with like individualism and cooperation and things like that, and how if people are used to coordinating and like working with each other as opposed to like, screw you, I'm just going to go this way. This is an interesting article. It's amongst all the other stuff with the World Cup and stuff. This article there, it says, light pollution may be making allergies worse. A lot of studies to say that it's not your imagination that you're sneezing a lot more. And if you live in the city, as opposed to the country, that it might actually, like, weirdly, kind of counterintuitively be harder on you. But yeah, the study published in the journal PNAS, Nexus, focused in the Northeast, found that trees in cities like New York and Philadelphia are producing pollen earlier in the spring and finished later in the fall compared to places in the same region with low light pollution. Difference could be up to 130 days per year. Difference, wow. The allergy season, wow. It says here, we've basically tricked plants into making decisions they wouldn't ordinarily make, said Dr. Katz of Cornell University. What's more, the study found the pollen counts in light-polluted areas are classified by scientists as severe on 27% of the days during the pollen season compared to 17% in darker areas. So, yeah. Ragweed plant causes allergies in up to 20% of Americans. It's the most common common allergen around here with between like Philadelphia and New Jersey. Ragweed is like crazy, crazy. Ragweed may grow twice as high under bright skies, like artificial lighting, as it does under dark ones. So, yeah, it seems like it's not your imagination. It's getting worse. I usually end it on a high note. Okay. Usually end it on a fun note. So here we go. Oh. In ancient squirrel dens, a mammoth discovery. Picture. Yes. There's a picture here of a. Come on. There. That's a fossilized squirrel den filled with dung, primordial squirrel dung. During the Klondike Gold Rush, prospectors learned that there was more than just gold in the hills of the Yukon, the territory in Canada. There were also fossils, lots of fossils. And apparently to this day, people still go fossil hunting. Icy rock faces also contained the tunnels and dens of prehistoric ground squirrels, which were filled with thousands of frozen pellets of ancient poop. Dr. Murchie said that even the oldest samples give off a telltale odor during chemical digestion. You'd think that these things wouldn't smell anymore, especially when you're talking about 700,000-year-old poop, he said. It was intense. But yeah, apparently the smell is frozen in there as well. Yeah, but the results of the genetic testing revealed a bigger surprise. After comparing the DNA sequences to known species, matches were found for plants, insects, and small mammals, as well as for woolly mammoths, caribou, wolves, cougars, and wild horses. It's possible that squirrels ate these other animals' droppings, but it's more likely that the squirrels were scavenging on the carcasses. So these ancient squirrels were not vegetarian. They were more like raccoons, kind of like eating whatever. It says most rodents aren't picky. If there's a lot of seeds and nuts and other plant materials around, they'll eat that. But if there isn't that, if there happens to be a carcass nearby, they'll definitely eat that carcass. Dr. Murchie said so. Here you go. Ancient poop, revealing secrets. All right. The rest is just too terrible. We'll save it for later. And I'm too tired. So that's it. That's it. That's the news. That's the science news. Okay, everybody. In the lab. That's where I work. In the lab. Go berserk. In my lab. That's where I work. That's what you're watching. Friend Lab. That's what I'm doing. Working at the bench again. I'm Fran.